My name is Brian. This is Bare Metal, and when doing research for another upcoming video, which I think you'll have a pretty good chance of guessing what that is, I came across a minimalist RPG called Demon Lord Reincarnation. I'll talk more about this game in a bit, but in a nutshell, Demon Lord is a turn-based dungeon crawler. You control a party of 4 as they descend into a labyrinth with the goal of defeating the namesake Demon Lord. When I looked into it a bit more, I found out that it's only one of a handful of video games crafted by a super niche Ukrainian game development studio called the Graverobber Foundation. All of these, as far as I'm aware, are available in a bundle on Steam, and they caught my attention for a few reasons. First, the kinds of stuff showcased in this bundle seemed right up my alley. There's a lot here, from mechs to ghouls and goblins to first-person cyberscape hacking games, so I knew that I would have more than enough to keep me entertained. Second, the review count on these is insanely low. The internet at the time of my discovery had very little to say about these, and what was out there didn't show any kind of consensus on their quality or value. And third, while they didn't seem to be super complicated or high budget, the trailer showed a lot of worlds, writing, and mechanics that seemed passionately put together, even if not perfectly executed. So I figured, why not find out for myself while showing you all what this bundle has to offer too. Now, these 10 titles are more expensive than I'd like them to be, so I don't necessarily recommend them wholesale. And I honestly don't even recommend them off the bat at all. With the exception of Demon Lord, I, at the time of recording this, haven't played any of these games. They're all still new to me. I'm going to be experiencing these games for the first time as you see them. I'm writing and recording the script in chunks as I go, so we'll be exploring them together and you can make up your mind as to what's worth what. I did do something unusual while making this video. I actually set up the microphone and recorded my live reaction to all of these titles. If you want to see something a bit less scripted and really get a sense for how I felt about these as I played them, I'm going to put a few clips and a link to the new secret archives containing the full video over on Blue Sky. And that's secret in quotation marks. You can find that pretty easily. Consider it exclusive content for the people who have followed me over there so far. One last warning about value before we get into it. Even during the spring sale, the total came to around $70 just for the games, and none of the extras like DLC or OSTs, which would have brought the total to over $100. And without the sale, I think the total is going to be about $150. In the world of video games, and indie games especially, that's not cheap. That translates to 70 games if you can get them all for $1. That's like half a Death Stranding 2 pre-order right there. You might be thinking even $70 for a bunch of minimalist indie games is kind of crazy, but I gave myself a choice between this stuff or Avowed, and I pretty much knew for a fact that I was not going to enjoy playing Avowed as much as I was going to enjoy making this video for you. Call it hedging your bets. So in this series, I'm going to take a more thorough look at what's in here, starting with Demon Lord. Without further ado, here is a deep dive into one of the many worlds of the Graverobber Foundation. Demon Lord takes place in a labyrinth deep beneath the surface of Issaguirre, a land once terrorized by an army of evil beings. This army was led by Lionhead, the Demon Lord himself, whose reign of terror ended when a group of heroes defeated him and sealed him deep underground. After their victory, the heroes disappeared, and a maze was built to prevent the Demon Lord from escaping, should he awaken again. The day of his reawakening is today, and he is going to reemerge again to do it all over if you don't stop him. It's up to you to assemble a party of 4 as they descend into the depths of this labyrinth with the goal of defeating him. Okay, that's enough spooky voice exposition. Full disclosure, I'm not usually a fan of turn-based games. I didn't grow up playing the character action classics like Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, or anything like that. But I do know that turn-based games do exist because I play Pokemon. Houndoom Gang represent.
How's that ass feeling?
This kind of combat has never been an integral component of the standard gameplay experience for me. To me, turn-based and counter-based systems like the ones you find in JRPGs or strategy games can feel a little claustrophobic, and after a while, disenchanting. Being told to wait your turn to smash stuff seems like it goes against the whole spirit of smashing stuff. So I was skeptical when I first read about it, but something about Demon Lord, after I booted it up, was really endearing to me. I think it might be the freedom that it offered up right away with selecting your characters at the start, and maybe just how many classes you have to choose from as you're building your team. While you don't get much background on any of them, you still get complete control over who the protagonists are and what kind of fighter you want them to be. So that was one component, but I'm also a big fan of the minimalist visuals for this. It only took a couple of screenshots for me to be excited about it. It's a black and white, slightly pixelated style. All of these designs 100% look like something you'd find in a classic game guide, like an Ultima manual. There's a lot to like. You have the player input, you have the distinct visuals, but there's also the gameplay. Now, let me preface this. I will say these words very slowly, because I know someone out there is going to purposefully misunderstand what this game is. And then they're going to be mad, because they've come to the conclusion that it is or is not something I never said it was. This is not a Souls-like. This is not a roguelike. We're going to say it together, again, one more time. You at home, too. This is not a Souls-like. This is not a roguelike. Wow, very good, you guys got it. Demon Lord Reincarnation is a purebred traditional RPG. There are no second chances, there's no getting back up at the bonfire, there's no keeping your stuff when you lose. Those mechanics don't exist. I know a lot of people, myself included, have been spoiled by a decade's worth of games that just reward you for getting up, dusting off those shoulders, and trying one more time. Not this one. This is an old soul, all-or-nothing computer role-playing game. And if you need the sugar on top that makes every other mediocre title palatable today, then you gotta go play something else. This ain't for you. Let me just set the stage a little bit. I name-dropped Ultima before, and I don't think visuals are where the parallels between these two games end. For instance, when you first boot up Demon Lord Reincarnation, the game says,
No, you're not ready. You should come back later. How's the game?
It tells you to go into the directory, go into the game files, program files, Steam, Steam apps, common, Demon Lord Reincarnation. It tells you to retrieve a PDF from that file that will tell you everything you need to know about the game. You get the true manual and the case experience with this one, real Game Informer era stuff. Rest in peace, Game Informer. Oh wait, never mind. Now the unconcerned eye might not catch this. You could mistake this line of text for a seizure warning or piracy disclaimer. And admittedly, I missed it the first time around because ever since the days of the Nintendo Wii, if I ever see boot up text, my eyes just glaze over and I start mashing the A button on my controller until video game happen. Alternatively, you might see it and process it and just go, game files? Ugh! Unreasonable. I don't need to read. I beat Shadow of the Erdtree without reading. I beat the first boss of Armored Core without reading. I survived food poisoning as a poor lad in college when I ate 3-day-old Arby's beef and cheddar, all without reading. So you hit play, and all the game tells you is that you have to make it 5 levels deep into this dungeon to defeat its namesake antagonist. You spend way too long flickering through the character selection screen without knowing the difference between any of these classes. And lots of things start happening in the background. Things that you will not know about. There are hidden stats, and magic types, and unlockable attacks, and abilities, all of which are uniquely distributed over 20 different character types. You'll only be able to recruit 4 of these at a time, making it virtually impossible for you to get the experience you'd need to brute force this game in any realistic or enjoyable way. You and your 4 sacrificial lambs walk around and talk to NPCs who give you virtually no help until you come across a stairwell. And then, you die dead. You will find a scorpion. It will stab you in the eye. If you're lucky, you will get bitch slapped by a slime. That is the game's phrasing, not mine. Whatever you find, you and whatever 4 little goons you spend 20 minutes doting over are going to get annihilated by it immediately. You're going to try again because you're no quitter, and you might make it to the second level, and then you'll really get wrecked, this time by enemies that are dandelion colored. So, let's take a look at that manual, shall we? The first thing we see when we open the PDF is a lore drop, which we've already covered. Then it says, begin your adventure by assembling a party of 4 adventurers at the campfire. If an adventurer dies, you can return and recruit new adventurers, and their stats and skill growth will be adjusted to roughly match the rest of the party. Sounds fairly uncomplicated, right? Well, no, you're wrong and dumb, and it is complicated. Again, that's the game's phrasing, not mine. I personally think you're great and smart and you've got it all figured out, but just to be sure, let's find out what else is complicating our mission. Each one of the 20 different classes relies on 6 different skill points to define their strategic value: strength, dexterity, mobility, vitality, intelligence, and willpower. Your characters also start with 2 baseline sets of limited resource points: HP or health points and SP, skill points. Health will vary by class, but SP always starts at 8 and increases as you progress. Now this may sound like a pretty standard RPG system, but 2 things make Demon Lord a little different. Here's thing number 1, you don't level up in this game. There's no such thing as a level 3 archer. You can't dump points into stats, nor do you have control over whatever abilities your character has access to. Progression happens in a slightly sneakier way. If you win a battle, every one of your characters has a chance to gain a point in an arbitrarily selected stat. The more enemies you fight in a single encounter, the more likely you are to stat up, for lack of a better word. So if I win a battle against a huge crowd of enemies with a dark mage, she might gain a point in strength, her teammate might get a point in intelligence, and so on for every character I have in play. The other way that you develop is by unlocking skills. Skill acquisition, like statting up, is one of a few RNG-powered elements of the game. Every now and then when you're in battle, you'll tell one of your characters to do something, and they'll say, "Fuck you," and decide to do something of their own volition, and that will result in them learning a new move unique to their class. There are 3 kinds of skills usable by every character. 3 basic skills that you'll be able to unlock. Beyond these, you have 3 advanced skills, and 1 master skill. All of these have their own individual ranks from 0 to 3, which determine their effectiveness in combat. That is the mechanics of the game in a nutshell. I know that can be a lot to process, and I want to take a step back to make sure you have the chance to process everything too. Before I throw some more information at you, let's take a break and hear a few words from our friend on floor 5.
Hello, dear viewer. Line ad, the Demon Lord here. Man, there's a lot to unpack with this game, isn't there? Does this game sound complicated enough for you yet? It is deceptively complicated, isn't it? Deceptively. This is basically a tabletop RPG stuffed into Unity for single-player accessibility, which I like. Don't you want more games like that? We're only about halfway through this first section of this video, so feel free to take a little pause for yourself, stand up, stretch your legs, get some snacks, have yourself a little intermission. Go ahead, we'll wait. It's the only way Brian can hit the 1 hour mark on any of his videos, is if he fills it with dumb bullshit like this. Are you back yet? What did you decide to get? Maybe some popcorn? Some hot chocolate? I got a little snack too while you were away. It's, the souls of my enemies. You think just because I'm sassy I won't kill all of your characters? You try dealing with 2,000 years of bullshit and not being sassy afterwards. I'll kill them right now. I'm killing them. They're dead. Why don't you send me 4 more to snack on like a pack of Dippin' Dots? You think you can kill me? You can't kill me. You'll never even get to me. What? I'm sorry, am I scaring you? Am I scaring you? You want me to put on my nice voice again? You want me to put on my nice voice? I'm not putting on my nice voice for you. Where's Brian at? Brian, get back here and start the video.
Now you know how to make the most of your characters, and once you've done the hard work of shaping the party to your satisfaction, that's when you should know about the second big thing in this game: They are all expendable. Do not get attached. No one is important. Think Darkest Dungeon. The party itself as a set containing interchangeable parts is the only guaranteed constant. You are operating as the captain of a 4-part ship of Theseus, and if you lose everyone in it all at once, then it's game over. But all of your characters can die individually, and you can keep on keeping on just fine. It won't be the end of the world as long as you keep at least one of the others alive. That means you have to strike a balance between investing time and energy into individual characters and getting comfortable with the thought of losing them in a fight, or returning to the campfire to swap them out for someone better suited to your needs. Forging ahead, pushing deeper into the labyrinth makes it more likely that you will lose someone. Every level puts you up against new enemy types, and even familiar foes will scale with your characters as they increase their stats. And that means effectively, there's no way to XP farm your way to absolute safety. Instead, you have to strategize, starting with the makeup of your party. The one that ended up carrying me through the game consisted of a brawler, a high damage, mid-vitality fighter focused on stuns and physical damage, a dark mage who was able to do sweeping multi-enemy hits with magic-based attacks, a soldier that acted as a tank and later developed some decent damage output of his own, and finally a fighter whose high dex and mobility gave him initiative in most random encounters and allowed us to quickly get the advantage. Every one of these classes was able to accomplish something that the others weren't. Finding a combination of characters that can complement each other in this way is important, but one thing to note is that abilities are randomized for every class. Even if you pick these same classes, you won't necessarily get the same abilities every time. So a party built exactly like the one I described could be absolutely useless to you. This boils down to luck, and you can't get that by farming slimes. The game also disincentivizes grinding by presenting you with the possibility that every single one of your characters who has died can come back to life as a servant of Linad and use all of the skills that you developed for them against you when you return with a new team. So, if you don't want your 200 strength executioner coming back to life to chop your head off, you better keep him on a tight leash. One thing you may be relieved to hear is that the dungeon you have to navigate does not randomly generate. Every level is a 20 by 20 grid of navigable squares that are fixed in structure, although what you encounter on most of these tiles will change. A treasure chest that you find on one lap around the floor might end up being a bunch of imps on the next run, or it could be nothing at all. Every step that you take is subject to the whims of RNG in this way, with the exception of what I'm going to call canon event tiles. These are boss fights, secret encounters, and otherwise static objects that will serve as progression points and wayfinders for every level. For instance, there are some pentagrams laying around that seem to serve no purpose other than to look metal as hell and suck your party's health away if you step into them. These are always in the same place every run. You do have a compass and a locator that you can use to orient yourself and figure out how to get to these, but you don't get a map in-game. So you're encouraged to go Stone Age and pull out pen and paper to figure out the shape of this place for yourself. Shout out to all of the engineering, comp sci, and math grads who still have grid rule notebooks lying around from college. You finally have a way to get rid of those. Between you and the canon event tiles are lots of fights. Lots of fights! And even the fights are not as simple as they look. For instance, here is a randomly generated battle, like one you might encounter on the way to Big Lenny. You might look at this and say, okay, I'm fighting a scorpion and a goblin. And you're already on the path to failure because that's not what's happening here. In this situation, you are up against 2 active scorpions and 2 active goblins. Think of this fraction in the top right as a kind of row of enemies, each of them waiting politely for their turn to shank you in the urethra. In my example, you'll have to eliminate at least 4 enemies to progress from here, and more may show up later. The figure on the right represents the total number of enemies alive in each row. The figure on the left represents how many enemies are ready to attack you this round. By stunning or otherwise debilitating enemies, you can knock this number down and reduce the total attacks made against your team in any given play. This is where your stats come in. If you have a character who can stun, you want them to have high mobility so that they can go first and help you knock this number down before your enemies have a chance to act. Alternatively, you could not stun them and just duke it out, take a couple shivs to the chest and shake it off like a big dog, but you'll need high health and or vitality for that. Therefore, like all combat-centric RPGs, this game fundamentally boils down to a zero-sum DPS race. And I'll let whoever is interested dive into the code powering this, but from what I can tell, each row of enemies has its own shared pool of HP. And by doing enough damage at once, you can take out multiple enemies per row. This only applies to enemies represented by the same icon, so in our last example, it wouldn't apply to both the Scorpion and the Goblin unless you had some kind of AoE attack. But in spite of all of these mechanics, it's more likely that you'll be picking off enemies one at a time with smaller hits, at least as you start. The deeper into the dungeon you go, the more enemy types you'll find. On the first floor, you get some pretty standard guys like kobolds, slimes, and skeletons. You'll be able to rest between fights at any time, but if you ever underestimate a new foe and one of your characters dies, you'll have to backtrack, marching all the way back up to the surface to recruit another adventurer, or, alternatively, pushing forward and fighting at a severe disadvantage. And I can't emphasize this enough, you will be at a disadvantage. There are secret pathways, a couple of traps, a handful of scripted battles with human enemies, all tucked away behind wooden doors and false walls, if you can find them. And that might sound like your standard dungeon crawl, but make it down to floor 2 and the labyrinth itself will start to play mind games with you. Not only does it take on a more maze-like structure, but doors will disappear behind you the moment you walk through them, making backtracking impossible. Passages will funnel your party into spike pits, and you'll find yourself sealed in unfamiliar chambers packed to the brim with enemies. The rooms and hallways that connect these fork off, then reconverge to spiral or interlock with each other, and this leaves you wondering if the game is toying with impossible space. And to be clear, it never is. But it's a testament to how this game will warp your perception of both space as it exists and how you have to navigate it. And while Demon Lord is testing your sanity like some kind of game of first-person 4D Tetris, you'll also be dealing with enemies that get gradually more ghoulish and grotesque. Before long, all of them will have abilities strong enough to weaken the entire party, or take out one of your characters in only a few blows. Now, I know I just said a whole lot because that's what I do here, but we are barely scratching the surface of what this game actually has to offer, and to go any deeper, I basically have to start veering into spoiler territory if you care about that kind of thing. So from now to the end of the video, I'm going to reveal gradually more things about the story and about how you have to get to its climax and its end. I'm going to be dead ass honest with you guys. I don't think most of you watching this video will make it to the end of the game. 1, you have to buy it. 2, you have to play it. 3, you have to see it through to the end. And if you go into it blind, it is at a minimum 40 hours of a little bit of fighting, a lot of running, farming stat points, and trying not to die. This will not be enjoyable for anybody who is unwilling or unable to put in that much time for an experience that can be, for lack of a better word, slow as goddamn hell. So, if that is not you, let me spoil this game for you, because I believe it deserves to be talked about even if not everyone has the wherewithal to experience it themselves. And again, I know I'm taking a really long time to get to the point, but if you cannot sit through the very surface level description that I've given you of this game at this point, you're not going to make it, big dog. So we've already covered floors 1 and 2 and the mechanics that you'll have to use to get through them. On floor 3, the map will adopt a layout that is more segmented in structure, but your path through it will be no less serpentine or complicated. The first challenge is getting the structure down on paper. You'll have to feel your way through false walls, hidden rooms, and seemingly immortal enemies. But even once you've marked down what's in every square, it's not as simple as following the right path to progress. You want to get from floor 3 to floor 5, but floor 4 only exists in 5 distinct, disconnected silos that you have to access from the farthest possible corners of the dungeon. The central chunk of floor 4 is the path forward to Linead, but it's sealed off by a magical barrier, and the only way to break through it is to track down 4 undead spellcasters that are each hidden away in their own little isolated mazes. To find them, you'll have to follow their chanting. And once you've eliminated them and their skeletal minions, the bulk of level 4 will be accessible to you. But this is the densest area you'll encounter yet. Passageways will weave back and forth, Hallways slip into pure darkness, and cyclical passages will put you right back where you've started before you even know it. As you wind your way through this place, you'll find a lot of new threats. There are mimics, vampires, golems, and a lot of other creatures more dastardly than the ones you found above. When you finally feel your way through all of the alien architecture and illusory walls, you'll find the entrance to floor 5 guarded by a living statue. These are high health, high vitality enemies, and chances are when you first encountered them behind every other door on floor 3, your team just wasn't strong enough to get past them without someone dying. By now, you've had a chance to develop the skills you need to tear this solitary one down, and considering he is supposed to be all that stands between you and the final boss of the game, you should have more than enough motivation to do so. But descending onto floor 5, you find more surprises. If you try to use your compass, you'll find that the orb powering it cannot reach these depths. Getting lost has never been easier. Wandering through here, you come face to face with the 4 heroes who made this same trek long before you. They were the last ones to face Leinad. They were said to have defeated him, and so their very presence here seems to be a kind of contradiction. So much was omitted from the legend of their deeds that it seems to have been a betrayal of their true fate. Each one of them now is eternally lost, trapped in some kind of loop that has made them forget who they are and what happened to them when they arrived. They reveal what little they do know about themselves to you, and though almost every aspect of their identity has slipped through their fingers, they know with the utmost certainty that the last thing they accomplished was striking Leinad down. But now, the reality of their strange and terrible fate seems to tell the opposite story. That, yes, they fought Leinad, but they couldn't manage to defeat him. As they wander these halls, they find themselves losing their minds, their psyches eaten away by illusions of glory and realizations of failure. And they're powerless to fight back against the dark magic that surrounds them, making them experience this over and over again, eternally. But you can be their saving grace. They look to you for a kind of horrifically bittersweet salvation. They ask you to kill them, and to end their suffering. Not only are these fights difficult, but they change the tone of the game immensely. They remind you what you have to lose by being down here, and that victory may not come as easily or as free of cost as you might expect it to. Even as you've already sacrificed so many hours to get here, there's still more risk. Navigating the last reaches of the dungeon, you encounter a spacious room with a seemingly closed central chamber. By pushing against it one last time to check for false walls, you find yourself warned that beyond this point, there's no turning back. This is it, the end of the road. If you hit continue, you'll enter into a fight with Leinad himself. By the time you get to him, your characters will have developed significantly, but unless you have all of their abilities unlocked and developed, I can assure you that someone will likely die in this fight. But if you approach it strategically, it's a manageable one. Leinad does surprisingly little damage, and he's comparable to some of the enemies you find on floor 3 or 4. If you're smart with your stuns and attacks, the battle will end fairly quickly, and you'll have completed what you set out to do. An archangel descends from the heavens to congratulate you, but he immediately warns you that the fight isn't over. He tells you that Leinad's reincarnation cycle will begin anew, and once he comes back, your team will have to be prepared to strike him down again. But for now, they can rest. You've done it. You've cultivated a perfect party. You put in hours of blood, sweat, and tears, and you've made them the best fighters they can be. You have bested or outsmarted every creature the game has put you up against, and forged ahead to defeat Leinad, the Demon Lord himself. I know that this is no small feat. It took me about 40 hours to chart my way through this place, so if you manage to do everything as well, then my hat is off to you. Congratulations. Be proud of your work, bask in this moment, and once you've savored it, get over yourself because you're only halfway through the game. Once the interaction between the heroes and the Archangel ends, he sweeps them away. The next thing you know, it's far into the future, and you witness the Demon Lord's reincarnation take place with your own 2 eyes. Finally, he says, "I am reborn. It's time to show these pesky humans what the Demon Lord with an army of monsters can do." And at that moment, you'll be put back into the dungeon. And you'll begin to notice some things. You're in the same place you brought your team before, but now everything is tinted blue, as if you're viewing the world through inhuman eyes. Your gut instinct will be to check on your team, and when you do that, you'll realize what's happening. Your team isn't there anymore. Instead, you are the Demon Lord. You've become him, and now you have to fight from Lynad's perspective. This is something that has been foreshadowed since you opened the game, and when you're playing through for the first time, it's easy to miss the implication that this place is not your typical dungeon lair. It's not meant to serve as some demonic force's realm of influence. Instead, the labyrinth is a kind of prison for the Demon Lord. Lynad is not here by choice. He's kept here, made as weak as possible, slaughtered over and over again to keep him from reaching the surface. Act 2 of the game effectively follows Lynad's breakout of the labyrinth, and the cycle that has kept him confined within it. And you have to make him and his army strong enough to get them out. You've already taken a slog through every level of the labyrinth, and the structure won't be as unfamiliar or difficult to navigate this time around. And you won't be alone in trying to escape. Remember those pentagram things I mentioned not knowing the purpose of way earlier in the video? Well, it was around here that I figured it out. You'll have to fill your party, and instead of a campfire where human adventurers can come and go, Lynad uses summoning circles conveniently placed on every level to conjure and recruit his demon army. Almost every enemy that you've encountered up until this point will now be recruitable to your team. And unlike the party of adventurers, you can have more than 4 members within it at any given time, with the only caveat being that Lynad has to be one of them. The monsters you bring aboard are generally much weaker than the humans, at least early on. But if nothing else, you can remember which ones gave you the most trouble and make the safe assumption that they'll be equally troublesome for these nameless NPCs. Just like the journey down, the path up is riddled with canon events and combat encounters that you'll have no choice but to fight your way through. If you're committed, these will pose no great obstacle. It's only when you make it back up to the first floor, just before you reach the surface, that the true final boss of the game is revealed to you. As you try to step out of the labyrinth, the angelic figure from before returns once again, but it's not him that you're fighting. He steps to the side, and instead it's your team, the ones who defeated Lynad before, that you'll have to face as him now. If there's perhaps one lesson to take away from this game in every situation, it's don't overdo it with your own characters. Do not get greedy. There's no incentive to go to the extremes with your heroes and their abilities. Making them overpowered is a recipe for disaster. The first little warning slap that the game gives you not to do this is whenever one of your characters dies and you find them later as a resurrected enemy. This is Demon Lord effectively saying, hey, whatever you throw at me, I'm going to throw right back at you. So don't just play smart, play fair. And this final encounter is effectively the same conversation with the game, but it's the culmination of it. When I think about this aspect of Demon Lord Reincarnation, I just envision in my head a DM sitting at a table, staring you in the eyes as you try to bullshit him and tell him that you want to do something that is completely antithetical to the spirit of the game. You're playing dirty, you're playing cheap, you're making your character so OP that it sucks the fun and the challenge out of the game. And the DM, knowing this, says, okay, I'll just make you fight yourself to show you how much of an annoying shit you're being. It is the Soul of Cinder from Dark Souls 3. It is Shadowheart's self-same trial from Baldur's Gate 3. It is when the scientist becomes the robot in Robotron 64. It is the fight that makes you hate yourself and regret ever picking up the controller. In many ways, all this fight is doing is holding up a mirror to yourself, showing you how it felt to be the quote-unquote bad guy the entire time. And whereas in those other games, you're effectively fighting a Dark Link shadow version of yourself that's really some kind of imposter and not the true hero, you don't get that luxury in this game. You've made these characters, you've put time into them, you've made them as strong as they can possibly be, and now you have to turn around and put them down. Think about the last time you put dozens of hours into a game and at some point you decided you were done with it, whether that was because you beat the plot, or because you weren't making much more progress, or there wasn't that much more to do. So you're in the main menu and you scroll down to the save file and you look at the delete button and you hover over it and something keeps you from pressing it. It's almost certainly the idea that you have grown attached to the people in this little simulated world. And by clearing everything out, you're effectively killing them, wiping out all of the ones and zeros that make up the memories and the moments that gave you so much enjoyment. Every single one of us has out there somewhere something like a Minecraft world or a Sims household that they made at some point and spent way too much time working out all the little details of before deciding to just not ever return to it. It's sitting somewhere on a machine and will never be back there with those little places or personalities again. And it's way easier to just do that and leave it there than to delete it. You want to pretend like you'll go back to it at some point, and it won't have all been for nothing. And so when completing a game is contingent on handing you a loaded goddamn gun and saying, wipe them out. And as you do so, your characters fight back against you. That almost hurts. That sticks with you. Once you defeat your old team, the game ends, pretty much without any glamour or cinematic flair. We're told that Lynad goes to the surface and that his reign of terror begins anew. And while that's all the goodbye you get, I don't think you needed much more than the last battle to really feel fulfilled, or at least like the game had an ending. Now, you've probably listened to me ramble about this game for a while now, so I want to wrap this up with a very brief review. You might be looking at this and hearing my long-winded descriptions of it, and you'll ask yourself, is this really a good game? And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, honestly. It's absolutely not for everyone, but it is really fascinating, and I'm wondering if this is one of those cases where things can be sophisticated and made with love, without necessarily being for everyone. It's art. Painstaking, demanding, aggressively minimal art, but art. This is for very patient players who don't need flashy visuals, but instead appreciate complexity of experience over captivating style. It layers a lot of time-tested mechanics in uniquely innovative ways, and while it can be a bit frustrating to have to learn the ropes, I think it's a great experiment in RNG and a pretty cool reimagining of the old-school Blobber CRPG. When you get past the initial strategic hurdles, it's also a great way to just unwind in the evenings if you want the RPG experience without a ton of mental or emotional investment. I say that, but read the fine print under emotional investment. If there's one thing I want to beat this game up about, it's how horribly it overstays its welcome. It's a time sponge. It demands so much patience and strategic thought that for anyone who needs action and excitement and fast-paced enjoyment, it's not going to pay off. It's going to get old way before those magical moments that you're supposed to have as you play through it. There were times when I just wanted to do something else, and that can be a trap, because the moment you leave and find something more interesting in your library, that's when a game like this gets tossed back in the backlog and gets forgotten about forever. It gambles so much of the player's enjoyment on a twist that comes so late into the game and starts you from square one, and effectively rips away so much of what you've come to be invested in. The brutal, honest truth is that I don't know if I would have appreciated the journey if I hadn't resolved to record every moment of it. I had to project a lot of personality and character onto a world that seemed bland, rushed, cold. Playing it for you guys gave me a second reason to care about these characters and this world and the mission that was assigned to me in a setting that can feel otherwise bare bones and unforgivingly impenetrable. However, that is a vibe. It's not a, yeah, I need to replay this right now vibe, but I was feeling it. They got the point across of the cold dungeon that you have to wander through for all eternity. But I'm not roasting this game for no reason. I don't talk about things that I don't see value in. After I completed the game and did a last bit of research on it, I came across a note from Romana Surt, the game's lead developer, who mentioned that this version of Demon Lord Reincarnation that I have shown you was not really what they intended for this game to be. And I find that very interesting, because as much as I've complained about the pacing, everything about this game feels very deliberate, and it'll probably stick around in my mind as one of the most memorably constructed games I've ever played. But it's not what they wanted. They're planning on releasing an update with new content and features that they say were initially unable to be included due to internal deadlines. And while they were already planning on releasing a spin-off or a sequel, Demon Lord Reincarnation Gaiden, I think I'm just as interested in seeing what their original vision for this game was, and whether it lives up to the very compelling first impression that the OG version has left on me. And if nothing else, they've left me very intrigued. I'm looking forward to exploring the rest of this bundle throughout the year. That's all I gotta say about this one, and this is the part of the video where I turn it over to you. Let me know what you think about what you've seen here, and what games in the DRPG, turn-based, or minimalist categories have stuck in your minds as the best or most interesting ones you've played, and I'll try to check them out when I have time. One last thing I want to say is thank you to all of the folks who've been watching every video and sticking around and reaching out. I really do appreciate all of the positivity that you guys are bringing. I know some of you came on board for the dark fantasy games, some of you just came for the music references, and others are just excited to have found a new person on YouTube talking about niche stuff, which is definitely a feeling I can relate to, if you couldn't tell. I know it feels like an eternity between videos, but I've got several things in the works for you. I'm going to keep the momentum going one sticky note at a time. Thank you for hanging out. I'll see you in the next one.
Has anybody seen the keys to a Nissan Sentra? I think I dropped them on the dance floor. I can't find them. Anyone? Anyone at all?